This second part covers more complex data display components that require a lot of nested additional components to build them. In the first video, I explained basic components that could be used right away. If you haven't checked it out, feel free to watch it. Let's get into it. Now, I know I didn't cover typography on my last video, considering it is quite simple to use. However, there are many customizations you can do in the typography world. It accepts all system props, meaning you could add a margin like this or change the text color. In the official docs, it shows all of these props. You can also change the HTML tag in which it's rendered with the component prop, and each of its default on the theme in the variant mapping section. You can add the properties of a certain typography from the theme, since typography have its own object which is totally customizable on the theme. This includes adding and disabling variants, setting a default, and creating or modifying your typography styles. For more information about theming, you can check my video about theming and customization. Let's get into the complex ones, starting with the list. It has a similar structure to the unordered and ordered list item tags on HTML, but it is a little bit more customizable. For instance, you can add a subheader to the list with a subheader component, and by default, it will have a sticky position. To add text, you can use the list item text. It is self-closing and accepts a primary and secondary text which renders below it. Additionally, you can pass in the prop inset so the text leaves an indent at the beginning. This is useful if some of your list items have an icon or avatar, which you can add with the list item icon and list item avatar respectively. However, it is not limited to icons or avatars. You can practically put anything as a star adornment, and that goes the same for the end adornment, in which you can include them in the secondary action prop. You can replace the list item component with the list item button if instead of a static list, you want to display them as a menu or any actionable list. This opens up to a lot of possibilities, like a collapsible menu. You can pass in the dense prop if you want to have a more compact list, and pass in the disabled gutters prop to the list items if you do not want to have the padding provided. Take into account that this is not necessary to use this exact structure. You can use a box, a grid, or even a div. However, it is better to use these components since they are specifically for that purpose and can be modified on the theme. Tables also have a complex layout structure. However, if you have done tables on HTML, then it is similar to that. It has a table container which wraps the table, and you can set any styles you want for the entire table. You can use the component prop to use the styles of another component, like the card or paper component. Then we will set the actual table component, in which you can set a size of medium or small. Besides this, it does not possess many props. Next, we have the table head. Basically, it is the title of the table, and the table body which goes your data. Inside of these components, you will find that each of these have a table row component and table cell as well, normally iterated using the map function. The table row have a hover prop that adds a shade on that specific row that you hover, and a selected prop if a current row is selected. It is useful if you have an interactive table. The table cell has a property called align, used to align the content inside the cell. It also contains the properties called span and row span, similarly to those in HTML, which spans the table row or cell. Now, let's talk about the table footer, which generally goes below the table body. It is mostly used with the table pagination component, which is kind of a complex component, but I'll explain the most basic usage you can do. Most of these properties are self-explanatory. For the rows per page options, you can provide an array of numbers for each option of the amount of rows you want to show. You can also pass in an object with the value and label if you want to show a string. Then the rows per page shows the actual row value managed by the onRowsPerPage change function, which is just a React state that accepts a number, and that is all for this select. Let's go for the amount of data currently shown. You have the count property, which is just the total length of your dataset used to display this number. The page property is to just show what page you are currently in. For instance, this is page 0 and this is page 1 and so on. This property is managed by the onPage change function, which just accepts a number as well. And lastly, you'll need to add some logic for the amount of rows to show, which is simply a slice function. This is is most of the use cases. You can include sorting as well, but this is mostly implementing your own logic. First, we need to set the table cells in an array, since they will be sharing the same onClick function for sorting. After that, we need to know in what column we are sorting for and the order in which the user needs it. We also need to make sure to reset the order to be always ascending if clicked for the first time. Material also has a component called table sort label, which is basically used in this scenario. It has an onClick handler, which will handle the sorting, and an active prop, which gives styling to the current active sorted column, and a direction prop, which is sorted ascending or descending order. And as you can see, we have the styling there, it just doesn't sort our data yet, and for that we need to add logic into our body data. I'll be using the sort function with a bit of logic in regards to the order and the column selected. And that's it. Now your sorting works by each column and its respective order. There is another component called data grid, which is for more complex tables. Should I do a video about it? Let me know in the comments. I hope you have enjoyed and learned by watching this video. Remember to comment any suggestions, like and subscribe since this helps my channel grow. I see you on the next video. Bye!